Hello, it's me, it's Helen Norton, the artist who lives in West Australia, who is putting herself through a 30-day torture of, not torture, who is putting herself through a 30-day private challenge to paint a watercolour every single day and to deliver, not just to paint it, but to make the video and the editing, which of course is massive because I ramble on so much, but I've got this deadline. I've got to get that thing up on YouTube before the end of the day, and that's really working well for me. Just a bit of very small background because I could waffle on here for a long time, but I'll save that for a specific video to explain, how I got down on my farm where I now live in the southwest of West Australia. In a nutshell, about 4 years ago, I decided to change my life. I'd just turned 60 and I'd been running a very high stress program for all of my art career, and it was terrific. I had many benefits from that, and including reaching financial independence and security. But someone could say, what is financial security? I have a number in my head. I've been a single parent since when my boys were very young. So for me, it wasn't about reaching some sort of equilibrium as a couple. It was about when I had zero debt, I owned a house, and that is what I thought it was. But it was one step further, and I didn't even imagine or dream that I could get to it. And that next step was to actually have a passive income, which was outside of my own effort. And that's where things changed later through that 4 years. But that required me to change my lifestyle from living in a very beautiful fancy house in the Perth Hills to living on quite a humble little farm down in the southwest. There's been a lot of water under the bridge in between, and as I said, I'll save that for another video. But what has happened is because I unhooked myself deliberately from all my extrinsic motivators or the external forces that were keeping me under pressure, or as I always say, they were the guns at my head, the commitments you make, the contracts you make in your occupation. For me as an artist, it was, say, exhibiting in exhibitions, which were with external galleries, or painting commissions, which, I do still trickle along with those, but where it was on a much higher level. And the other thing I had was my own print business where I printed, as in published, printed my own prints and distributed them, which include, running a fairly complex website, doing the mail orders, sending them out, dealing with customers, etc. And I just wanted to stop everything because once that big 6-0 struck, it was a little bit like the pumpkin pulling up out the front, and I wasn't ready. And the reason I wanted to change things, I didn't want to stop painting. I wanted to stop how I was painting, what pressure I was doing it under. And that's why I made all the big changes. But there was another little secret reason that most people don't even know. I've been a closet writer since I was actually a little girl. And because art took over my life, I just decided to run with the art, even though I was still writing all the time. I'm more of a natural writer than a painter. But painting gave me the status that was necessary as a young woman, and let alone the money, like you actually got paid. And I guess because I was, quite obsessive about everything I did get paid, and I kept working harder and harder and harder. It was probably the right call that I could successfully raise my 2 sons on my own and get to where I am today. However, after writing millions and millions of words in the closet, it's very full. And I just felt that if I didn't do this one thing for myself now at 60, gosh, in 20 years, if I get to go that long, I'll be looking back and feeling really mad at myself. I'll be looking back and feeling really cross that I didn't do it. So that was the motivation behind coming down here and, moving to the country, and let alone all the other crazy things that were going on in the world, which sort of pushed me to, go off grid, grow food. It's just the instinct that we should all have, which is natural, especially when you're being kind of terrorized and threatened from outside sources that probably shouldn't be doing that to you. Anyway, we won't go there. However, it does kickstart all that paranoia really quickly in some of us. And I think artists are very sensitive type people. So they're going to pick up all those warning signals very quickly because it's the antithesis, all that threat coming from, well, yeah, governments, it really is actually, and societies, because people just flip their lids. And that threat is the contradiction to what we do in our studios, which is to mostly work with the positive expression of emotion. So I don't mean everything's like, happy and wah-wah in the paintings, because often artists really should be painting the dark side of the moon. However, the whole notion of going over to the studio and painting requires a fairly clear heart. Nobody wants to paint when the Huns are at the door, right? Like, that's the last thing you do. We just have to look at Maslow's triangle to know that when the attackers, the marauders are coming, when you're being threatened, the first thing you do is actually look after everything down the bottom, the survival. And as you go higher up, the expression of art is actually a luxury in your culture. So it's any wonder that so many artists have reached out to me and said, I've lost it. I've lost my butterfly. I've lost the sparkle in my heart. I've lost whatever you want to call it. They just feel like someone's just stripped out the bones inside of them and they just don't want to paint. So I've had 4 years of torturing myself with that feeling and I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done with it. And that's why I've decided to do this very small, tiny little thing, but it does require quite a lot of pressure on me, but it's all about giving back. It's not about selling. Yeah, sure, I'll sell the little paintings, but it takes just as much effort to create one of these little tiny, almost postcard size works as it does to do the same effort on a large painting, which might sell for $5,000. So it's not about money, or I would just be pumping them out and putting them on my newsletter and, so on, which, I still like to do. But it's more about communicating and sharing. And honestly, my motivation right now, and it's all the videos I've already made, which I didn't release because I was feeling like, I don't know whether I should put them out there. And they'll be coming after this series. This is all about me talking to artists. I want to get inside you and help you get back on your horse. I want us to get back on our horse together because that's what I'm doing for myself, and I'm simply projecting it out and hoping that some of that spirit gets inside you and you can also benefit from what I'm doing. Anyway, I've probably gone over my couple of minute blab that I was going to limit myself to. You probably want to see the painting for the day. So I will now get out of here and let you see what I've done today. Tooroo!